Coming up on today's show, we're joined by former FIFA referee 𝘂𝗱𝗄𝗃 on the big news coming out of Premier League refereeing right now. Do you think he can referee in the Premier League again?
Personally, no, I don't think so.
I ask Gary whether Manchester City are in crisis.
There's definitely an element of crisis happening at City at this moment in time. It feels like they've hit a wall.
We round up all the MLS playoff news with the chaps from the 𝘂𝗄𝗃𝗃 podcast.
Messi, Luis Suarez, 𝘂𝗂𝗰𝗃𝗁𝗂𝗃 all knocked out.
And we catch up with Hollywood star and massive Arsenal fan, Will Poulter.
Jeez, you're getting to kiss Jennifer Aniston. I wasn't doing that at 21. I was kissing Paul Scholes at 35.
That's all coming up on today's show. Hi everybody and welcome to this week's episode of It's Called Soccer. Gary Neville and our former FIFA referee 𝘂𝗂𝗃𝗁𝗃 on the show right now to start things off. 𝘂𝗂𝗃, we're getting you in early because it is the story at the moment that everybody's talking about. It's not a fun story, it's not a nice story. I'm sure everyone watching and listening has seen the video or at least heard what it's about. But David Coote, the Premier League referee, has been suspended by the PGMOL pending a full investigation following a video, a couple of videos actually, that were released on social media in the last 48 hours in which he criticises is probably an understatement of the century, but disparages Liverpool and their former manager Jurgen Klopp. So he has been suspended. We await the outcome of the investigation, 𝘂𝗂𝗃. It's not a fun topic, but what is your take and what is the talk of the refereeing world?
So this definitely has sent ripples through the referee world. One of the biggest things is, as an official, you are sitting in a position where essentially you are the decision maker of the game. You are a judge in that respect, right? So neutrality, right? Understanding that, your decisions affect the outcome of the games. And at this level, and even at the lower levels, you understand that that's impacting, not just the players and the 22 on the field and the coaching staff and potential, coaches continuing being hired, but millions and billions of dollars at stake. And one thing I learned very quickly, my time in the summer with, in the ITV is just how much scrutiny officials do get in the Premier League itself as well too, right? If an official makes a mistake on that weekend, their face is on the front cover of all the newspapers, on all the media, and how much scrutiny that they get, their family gets, that their regular jobs get. However, this here is it's not even it is the worst scenario or nightmare for an official, for an organization, where we are protecting the sanctity, the integrity of what are referees, right? There's so many conspiracy theories all the time. Everyone always thinks referees are biased. And we always say, and I always advocate that we don't care who wins. We just care that we don't affect the outcome of the game. So when you have this kind of footage that comes out, especially a high profile official such as David Coote, who, worked the men's Euros this past summer, who's considered one of the top officials for UEFA and FIFA and England, that really just puts a black mark into what we do as a profession and our integrity, and challenges the foundational core of who we are as officials. It just really impacts not just what he does there in England, but it really impacts what happens to other officials at higher levels around the world.
Do you think once the investigation is conducted, do you think he can referee in the Premier League again?
So personally, no, I don't think so. And the reason why, and many people say, and I don't say that lightly, right? At no time in any position do I advocate for someone to lose their job. But when you're in that position where you are assigning, and once again, people that have to be neutral, people that can't have biases, right? Where you try to eliminate those biases. I know in Premier League for PGMOL, they ask anyone if they have any allegiances to a club, because, how you guys have, for those here watching from America, right? I always say that the best way to equate the fandom in England football to the United States is like SEC American football. The passion that they have, and they follow a club or they follow a franchise, whether that's Ole Miss or University of Florida or something like that, because their parents and their grandparents are from that. That's the same equation over there in England of how passionate you all are about your clubs. So I know in PGMOL, the organization, right, for the referees over there, they do ask those, like, do you have an allegiance to a club and have been a supporter? And they're very, very aware of it. So they make sure that there's no, appearance of impropriety, not impropriety itself, but the appearance. So when you're protecting that organization, and in Howard Webb's position, unfortunately there's no way to win if you're putting an official in there who has had already and has specifically, this isn't a conjecture. These are words coming out of his mouth that are always going to put a stain on every decision he makes, right? Every decision that he does or doesn't make. Everyone's going to always be over analyzing. Did he not send that down because he doesn't like so-and-so, right? Did he miss that on purpose? And at that point, it's hard to protect the integrity of the officials moving forward, especially David Coote in the situation.
Gary, your thoughts?
Look, I can understand how Christina's got to that conclusion. We were discussing this earlier on today, and I feel like if we look at the words that David Coote said, obviously it's going to bring him great disappointment. I think it'll bring great disappointment to the refereeing community. But he's called Jurgen Klopp the C word, which is obviously a very aggressive word. But I didn't see anything within his words that told me that he had influenced decisions in the wrong way, that he was looking to do Liverpool over, do another club over. It was very sloppy. It's something that he should obviously never have done. It's something that I'm sure he'll regret, not just today, but for the rest of his life. But when I look at that from not just an employment perspective, but from a point of view of almost cancelling him, because the minute that you cancel him as a Premier League referee, you're effectively cancelling him from the game, because I'm not sure any other organisation is then going to look at him and say, okay, come over here and work for us, mate. Unfortunately, we live now in a world whereby when you get cancelled from one organisation, that impact and that sort of ripple effect goes on to the other. I think that if he'd have said something along the lines, I actually think the worst words in the video were said by the guy sat next to him when he said, I hate Scousers. Because that demonstrates a hatred towards a group of people, of which obviously Liverpool, Everton. So it could then mean that David Coote, but David Coote never said those words. David Coote didn't say those words himself. It was said by the guy next to him. So he's been stitched up. He's been very sloppy. It's a mess. And I can see why the refereeing community and Christina get to that conclusion that, to be honest with you, you're deemed to serve to a higher purpose, like a judge, like a police, man or woman. You almost have to live by a higher bar. But I honestly feel that he's got, can I say, pissed up? He's got bladdered, he's got drunk, and he's basically let his mate film him, which is stupid, but that's what happens. We've all sort of been there where we've probably, had too many drinks and we've done something maybe in our years where we would have probably not wished we'd done it. And the idea that he loses his job for that, I understand what you're saying. It could become untenable. It could become impossible when he goes into Premier League grounds, and it might be difficult for him to referee Liverpool again. But I'd hope that they can get through it. I'd hope that if there had been any suggestion whatsoever that this referee was making a decision against Liverpool or making a decision against another club, I would be saying, no, he's got to go straight away. He's no chance. But I just feel that he's called a manager a word because he's got a bad relationship with him and he thinks they've had a bit of a sort of to-do together, a bit of an argument together. That's what I feel's happened.
And that's a former manager as well, Gary. That is not a manager currently working in the Premier League. You just said something there about he might not be able to referee Liverpool games. Do you think there is a world in which David Coote could run out at Anfield?
I think, look, we know that certain referees don't referee at Anfield or at Old Trafford or at St James's Park because of their allegiance. For David Coote to be removed from Liverpool games, I think would be a good step. In employment law, and I'm not an employment lawyer, but if you call someone a name, I feel like it's a warning. It's a second warning. It's a final warning. I don't feel like it's an axe. It's a sack. I feel like taking him off Liverpool games and giving him a final warning is probably something that should happen. But I don't feel he should lose his career and lose everything he's worked for all his life for it. I don't feel he's crossed that line. That line that I feel would have been crossed if he'd said, look, I'm not going to give Liverpool another decision again. That's it. He's done. He's out of there. But he's actually just doesn't like the character of a certain guy at Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp. That was what it was. He actually said he liked James Milner, who's also a Liverpool player. So I don't know. I'm a bit stuck on it. But what do you think, Rebecca? I mean, obviously, this is not just something that can be. I think that for me, it's almost like you're stepping into a workplace environment and thinking, would you want to see your teammate lose their job for that? I'm not sure I would for that. I think, I don't know.
I think we're very quick to end people's lives, to be honest. We're very quick to cast people aside. And I think we have to be very careful about that. I just wanted to pick up on one thing you said, Gary, because you said about I'm not a lawyer. Well, guess what? Not only is Christina a former referee, she's also a practicing lawyer. Now, I know this isn't necessarily your area, Christina, but if you could just have a think about the thing that Gary said about, the language that was used and from a legal perspective that the PGMOL and the Premier League are going to have to go down here. Talk to us about those intricacies.
The intricacies of these is one, understanding the contract. So everyone understands that this is a full employment and they sign the contract. Now, if there's what we call a morality clause within the referee's contract, and obviously here in the United States, there's collective bargaining associations, CBAs, et cetera, over in PGML, whether they have a protective group. And I don't think there's that same kind of a structure set up as we do here in the United States, which is, right, we have the PSRA system here in the United States. That being said, a morality clause is something that's very kind of loosey-goosey, only in the sense that if they feel like you're not holding the establishments, whether through it's your actions or your words, that are putting the organization in a best light. And, Gary, to your point, I would love to be in your camp and say if people could give grace and mercy and allow him to continue to officiate, then to do so. And I was actually pretty surprised at the number of comments that people said, oh, he just had an added, like it wasn't in his right thing. They should continue to let him. If people could give grace to that, I would be on board with that. I think one of the most important things of just knowing our environment as an official, having gone through the system, both on the professional and on the FIFA side of it, is that we don't get given a lot of grace within our own organization and those who are our supervisors, right? From the media training that we get to being aware of, social media, the comments we make, any statements. I've been officiating since I was 10 years old. So for the past 27 years, everything I've done, I've said, I've acted, I've tweeted, everything I know, I always look at it from the perspective of how will this be used against me by individuals who for some reason want to use either what I've said and or the media to attack an official because they have a different agenda, whether that's meaning personal agenda and or most importantly, probably just protecting themselves. So that's kind of why I say it's a very, very hard position. If you are the assigner of these games, if you are Howard Webb, right, in this position of saying, how do I put this gentleman back out there where and even protecting David Coote himself, knowing how, right here in the United States, right, if I made a mistake on a Saturday, no one knew about it because unfortunately soccer isn't the number one sport in the United States, but over there, everybody knows about it. Even people who don't watch football over there or soccer, I know we're trying to change the name a little bit, know about it, right? It's just the front cover thing. And we always say there's not a bad referee, there's just a bad assignment. Meaning if you're putting him out there and then there is a potential controversial issue, I can tell you that the staff, there'll be they're out there. Maybe he has the thing out for this coach. Because let's just be honest, there's certain managers out there who just aren't nice to officials, right? They're using choice words, they're using this. I'm not saying that's acceptable, but then they're going to say, well, maybe he doesn't like them either because he's already been clear that he doesn't like certain people who go at him. So I'm with you. I want to live in your camp, Gary, that they're going to give him grace, and Rebecca, that we don't cancel individuals out for a horrible mistake that they made. But at the end of the day, we're not even protecting ourselves from impropriety. We're protecting ourselves from the appearance of impropriety.
Just one thing I was thinking about, though. There are a group of referees who've retired in the last 5 or 10 years who are working on the after-dinner circuit speaking, telling us about how they used to sort of get one over on Ferguson or get one over on Keane or get one over on Ian Wright. I see stories on Instagram Reels all the time where ex-referees are speaking and they're talking about, I didn't get on with that player and I didn't get on with that player. I think we're quite aware that referees are not going to like certain players, that they're not going to like certain managers. Because like you say, Christina, some managers and some players, including myself during my career, at times were hard work for referees. So we know that referees think this way because as soon as they retire, they tell us on television now, on podcasts, on other sort of forms of...
Well, they're human, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're human.
So the fact that this guy's been caught probably at 12 o'clock at night, drunk, and he said it during his career... I feel that we know that referees are going to not like certain managers and certain players and they're going to carry that little bit of a sort of mood towards them. I just think, are we saying, I don't believe David Coote, to be fair, is anti-Liverpool in games. I don't believe he gives bad decisions against them because he wants to. I never even believed that during my football career at United when I used to not like referees. I can give you the name of 3 referees, which I'm not going to because I don't want to, that I didn't like. I genuinely thought they were against us during our career, but I don't believe they for 1 minute were basically sort of frauds or corrupt or anything like that. I just thought that, to be fair, I didn't get on with them, they didn't get on with me. And I feel that players know that and managers know that. And you sort of get a referee appointed to your game and you'll go, I can't believe we've got him again today. And the referee's probably thinking the same thing. So I just don't know. I just feel, look, I think you might be right, Christina. I think you're probably going to be right, because I feel the safe thing to do here is to say, look, there's a line, he stepped over the line, we're referees, we're held to a high bar, and he's got to stop refereeing in the Premier League. However, I bring it back to, what has he actually said? He doesn't like a manager. He thinks certain manager was against him, and he's going to lose his livelihood and his career because of that. And I don't feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I think, Gary, one of the biggest things you said is like how intimate our environment is between the managers, the referees, and the players, right? We know each other. We know each other's tendencies. We typically call each other by the first name because we know each other. It's that intimate. But because this is just so public, and now you're talking about spectators, and you're talking about fans, and you're talking about business owners who have invested millions of dollars in it, that's where, for me, it just goes way beyond that level and will just take a beast of its own.
I think bottom line is an unwise decision, but so unwise as to lose everything. That's the decision I think people have to make, first and foremost, 𝘂𝗵𝗺𝗏. Thank you, Christina, so much. We'll see you next week. Okay, so we discussed the refereeing story of the week. Your Allstate moment of the week, what are you going for with that, Gary?
It has to be the Brighton comeback against Manchester City. I think I was over actually with NBC the last time we saw an amazing Brighton comeback against Tottenham. Do you remember on that Super Sunday?
Yeah.
I just think to come back against City, obviously they're not in a great moment. City will come on to that in a minute, I'm sure. But the way in which Brighton came back against them in the second half to score the goals that they did, to create the chances and get the victory, I think is an amazing feat and should never be underestimated, even though City aren't in a good moment. It's just an amazing thing to do that against Manchester City. It doesn't happen very often.
How are we classing this? Are we classing it 4 straight defeats, although as Pep kept saying, just 2 in the Premier League, but it is 4 straight defeats when you look at all competitions. Are we classing it as a crisis?
I think you have to class it as a crisis because of the fact that we would have classed it as a crisis back in the day if we lost 4 on the bounce as Manchester United. Not because I think that City have finished or that they're done and that they couldn't win the league this year. But what I do think is when you're a club like City and you're a club like we were back in the day, or Liverpool in the 70s, 1 defeat is a problem. 2 defeats, you're starting to get a lot of scrutiny. 3 defeats, panic mode sets in, and the actual, the media are all over you. 4, you're thinking, hang on a minute, what's going on here? So there's definitely an element of crisis happening at City at this moment in time. They're not coping without Rodri at all, which is obviously a problem for them because they're without him for the rest of the season, but they're also not coping in terms of the rest of the team. They look like they've lost energy, they look like they've lost their sort of bite, their fierceness, their ferocity. That can happen. This is a serial winning team who have climbed mountain year after year after year, who've had demands put on them year after year after year from a manager who's got huge expectation. And at some point, you just need to go, I can't do this anymore. There comes a point where you just have to, you hit a wall. And I think it feels like they've hit a wall. Now, can they get that back in the international break in the next month or 2? Can they find something that means that they stay in the race? At times like this, I think Pep Guardiola will be saying, if we're 5 points off the top of the league come the turn of the year, we'll be okay, because that's when we kick in. The one thing they have to do, I think, and I'm surprised they haven't done it, is find a better solution for central midfield with Rodri out. The easy thing is just to put 𝘂𝗍𝗂𝗁𝗂 in there, is just to put Gundogan in there. I always saw Pep as being innovative and somebody that created positions for new players that we'd not even thought of out of nothing. I can think of Mascherano going back to centre-back at Barcelona, or Yaya Toure going back to centre-back, or different players, Messi coming off that right wing where he was situated for years and playing as a false 9 to find a solution to do something. I just think that looking at City at this moment in time, Pep Guardiola must be looking at it and thinking, I don't know, go 3 at the back. I'm not suggesting I tell Pep what to do, but I would have expected him to come up with something different to cancel out the loss of Rodri, which is obviously very difficult with him being the player he is.
Just one more on City. Do you think they could do with knowing now about Guardiola's future?
I've seen it from both sides. I saw a manager, Sir Alex Ferguson, announce he was leaving early in the season. All that did was create speculation. And then I've seen a manager announce at the very end of the season, Sir Alex Ferguson leave, and it left the club in a position whereby they didn't handle the transition very well. So I've seen both not work. Jurgen Klopp, if you think about how Liverpool did it last year, was it about January, February they announced that he was leaving?
January, I think. Yeah.
January.
Was it November? No, I think it was January.
Was it? Yeah, I thought it was a few months before the end of the season. And Liverpool still had a very good season. 𝘂𝗱𝗄𝗃's come in and done a very good job. So they've handled it particularly well. City have got a lot of stability behind the scenes and they've got a very strong structure. Got obviously an ownership that's been there a long time. So they could handle it in the same way as Liverpool did. But there comes a point where you think, how long is Pep going to go on for? He's nearer to the end than the beginning. We know that it has to be. But is it this season or is it next? It seems to be one of the two. Some people say he wants to do 10 years. He wants to make sure that he sees the 10 years out. I don't know whether that's the problem with the players, though, at this moment in time, Rebecca, if that's the question that you're asking. I don't think they're looking at it thinking Pep Guardiola's leaving or Pep Guardiola's not leaving. And I think it's just a group of players who've run a million miles an hour for so long, winning trebles, doubles, getting to cup finals, getting to the end of Premier League titles. They've always had pressure on them and they're just having a rest. And that's not having a rest purposely and in a knowing fashion. They just step that little bit off it and just go, and before you know it, you've lost everything. So they've got to get that back. Can they get that edge back? And I'm sure they pretty much can. You know, they're having a bad season. They're only 5 points behind the top.
I know. But that's their own fault for being so blooming good the last however many years, you know? So whenever they do have the 4 in a row, we're all like, whoa, because it's not happened in 18 years. Not happened since before this current ownership. And obviously it's never happened in Pep Guardiola's managerial career. He's never lost 4 in a row. When they come back from the international break, their game is against, in the Premier League, Tottenham. And I just want to get a few thoughts on Spurs for you, because that's one of the other interesting storylines at the moment. We don't want to use the word, but we're going to use the word. It is the most Spursy season of all time, in that you're beating teams you shouldn't, like Villa, like Man City in the Cup, and then you're losing to teams you shouldn't, like Galatasaray in Europe, like Ipswich that we just saw at the weekend. The up and down inconsistency, 𝘂𝗱𝗄𝗃 said this weekend, is down to his approach. So therefore, of course, the question is, you have to change it, don't you? He has to change it, his approach. Yeah,
he looks really down, doesn't he, in the interviews when you see him come in. He looks, you know, not going to say he's lost, but he looks really sort of down on himself. But he's getting some pretty poor performances out of the players. But then, you know, at Old Trafford, they were fantastic.
I know. That's it.
City in the Cup. But I look at it at this moment in time, and I really like Ange. I really like him at Tottenham. I think his style of play suits the club. I just wonder whether he feels let down with something. You just always know sometimes at Tottenham there's a period comes whereby something's happened behind the scenes. He may have been rejected, and obviously he's got honour and he's got integrity. And obviously you know what happens there at that club. There's one guy who runs it and he sort of says, no, this is what we're doing. And then you've almost got to sort of like kick off, and that's a bad ending. Or you've got to sort of keep quiet, and that's probably not the best either. He looks like he's in that type of mode where he feels maybe a little let down by certain things that may have happened. He might be let down by the players. Feel let down by the players, by the levels of performances. He might feel let down by people above. But he also, I think, is taking responsibility himself, which I would expect him to do. That's what good managers do. They take the responsibility themselves. They take the sort of pressure away from the players and don't pile it onto the players. But it's a difficult situation. You're right. There is something happening there at this moment in time. It needs monitoring, because there's a type of situation at a club like Spurs that can go away, but it can easily get out of control quite quickly if they don't start winning games and picking some points up. Even though it's, they're still quite, they're in touch still.
Yeah. I mean, the crazy thing is, if they'd beaten Ipswich, they'd be 3rd. And we'd be having a completely different conversation, but they're sitting 10th. Now, interestingly, this season, the stats, if you look into the deep stats, the stats are better. Virtually every area of the Premier League stats are better for Spurs this season than last season. Their expected points are that they should be 3rd. So there is definitely hope in amongst the fact that it is so up and down. I just had one other question for you. He obviously talks about how he wins a trophy in the second year wherever he goes, 𝘂𝗱𝗃, and we all know that it will be 17 years in this May since they last won a trophy, which was that League Cup in 2008. If he wins them a trophy like he says he does it kind of null and void the league?
I mean, null and void the league, not to the extent, I mean, the club above him, the people above him will want European football for cash. But I think if he wins a trophy, which he said that's what he does in second seasons, and that's what Tottenham need. That club needs a trophy. Newcastle United need a trophy. Those fans of those two great clubs need to celebrate silverware. They cannot go 15, 16, 20, 30 years without winning trophies of significance. They have to win trophies. So for me, if he won a trophy this season and he finished 8th or 7th, obviously that would be a disappointing year in the league. But I think that Tottenham fans and Ange Postecoglou now would snap my hand off, and I would if I was them.
Well, I mean, 8th or 7th is probably Europe. So what about if he finished 10th and won the FA Cup?
Yeah, I mean, if he was in 8th, he'd be in the sort of... what would he be in?
Probably, depending on who wins the FA Cup. Yeah, I think he'd be in the conference.
Yeah.
So if he finished 9th or 10th and they won the FA Cup, you all right with that?
Yeah, I'm all right with it. We've had this situation at United, haven't we, with Erik ten Hag winning 2 trophies in 2 seasons. And you look back over the last 10 years of disappointment at United, and they've won 5 trophies. Now, they spent 1.8 billion quid, let's be clear, but Tottenham haven't won a trophy in that period at all. They've not won a trophy. So they've not won a league and they've not won a trophy. That's the unacceptable bit. If Tottenham had won 4 trophies in the last 10 years, the FA Cups or a Europa League or a League Cup, Tottenham that's a fantastic period for Tottenham. So if Ange can win an FA Cup this year, if he can then the year after build on that again and get a League Cup, or he can get a top 4 finish, that's a successful period. You're up against giants when you're Tottenham. Tottenham at this moment in time, they're probably trying to sell the club, I would imagine. They're probably trying to bring in this huge owner that can fund the team to get them to spend the level of money that the Chelseas of this world, the Manchester Uniteds, the Cities, Arsenals have spent. That's where Tottenham need to be challenging for the league. That's not going to happen under this current ownership. So to win FA Cups and win League Cups is absolutely, I think, a massive success.
This episode of It's Called Soccer is in association with Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance by checking Allstate first. It's always smart to check first, and we've all learnt the hard way with this, haven't we? Like when you forget to download your tickets before heading out to the game. You get to the stadium to find that there is no cell signal and the stadium Wi-Fi isn't working, so you spend an hour before kickoff at the box office instead of at the bar. And what if you booked that big vacation away before you check the date of the cup final? Definitely been there before. So yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. This content is intended for audiences in the US only. Savings vary, terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
It's Called Soccer is in association with LinkedIn. When I'm growing my businesses in the UK and USA, finding the right people is crucial. I need a team that understands the vision and can hit the ground running. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. You know, it's not just a jobs board. LinkedIn is where you find professionals you won't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively looking, but might be open to the perfect role. So you can hire the pros like a pro. In fact, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. And here is the kicker. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. My team found talented people who were perfect for the job quicker than I thought possible. So if you're like me, you're looking to build a great team, post your job for free at linkedin.com/flexible. That's linkedin.com/flexible to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
It's Called Soccer is sponsored by SeatGeek. Okay, everyone, we're right in the thick of sports season. The NBA and NHL seasons are in full swing. We're already halfway through the regular season in the NFL, and we're heading to the conference semis in the MLS Cup. It is all happening. Whatever elite sport you're into, get your tickets sorted with SeatGeek. I've been checking out the app, and it's got everything I need to get to a game. And even better, you can use the code ICS10 to get 10% off any tickets on SeatGeek. That is right, 10% off any ticket, whether you're a new customer or not. Sports, concerts, festivals, you name it. SeatGeek makes it simple to find the best tickets. They've got a rating system from 1 to 10. So just look for the green dots. Green means a great deal, red means bad. Nice and easy, right? So grab your phone, open the SeatGeek app and add the code ICS10 to your account. Do not hang about because this offer's not here for long and those games are coming thick and fast. Remember, that's code ICS10 in the app for 10% off tickets at SeatGeek up to a maximum of $20 off. Get your tickets now. All right, now it's time for our weekly MLS playoff chat with the chaps from the Give and Go podcast.
Another dramatic weekend in the MLS with 4 Game 3 matches going down to the wire, starting off with LAFC defeating Vancouver 1-0 at home.
Yeah, really dirty move from Bogusz and a lovely finish to boot. Gave LAFC the 1-0 lead. Vancouver really tried to get back in this game. They had a lot of possession, but just ultimately couldn't find any gaps in that LA defense.
And afterwards, we had 2 dramatic shootouts with Orlando City hosting Charlotte FC and winning 4-1 in penalties due to a 𝘂𝗍𝗂𝗍𝗂 performance, but getting there by some luck, man, with Facundo Torres scoring a rebound penalty.
Yeah, Facundo Torres probably the luckiest player in all these Game 3 matches, man, because the ball went straight back to him off of the rebound block from the goalkeeper. He's able to equalize the game. The match goes to penalties, man. What a very lucky moment for Torres.
Tough pill to swallow if you're a Charlotte FC fan, but that's just the chaos of the MLS playoffs. Going on, we got Cincinnati losing to New York City FC in penalties as well.
Yeah, this was a really chippy match. Neither side could really break the other opponent's defenses. There was a lot at stake on this match, and it really showed on the pitch as it got very physical towards the end of this match. Game goes to penalties, and we go all the way to the ninth kicker. It takes all the way to the ninth. Cincinnati missed 3 penalties in a row, and finally, New York City FC are able to get the victory over Cincinnati.
And if that wasn't dramatic enough, we had the headline of the weekend in Inter Miami losing to Atlanta United at home 3-2. Messi, Luis Suarez, Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, all knocked out.
Another sublime assist from the Portuguese wingback Pedro Amador to find Bartosz Slić to get Atlanta the surprise 3rd goal that ultimately gave them the victory over Miami in this match. But what a result. The best team in the MLS, the most points accrued in a regular season in Inter Miami, out of the playoffs in the first round.
And the 9th seed as well. I think this truly shows just what a crazy run Atlanta United is in right now, and it also highlights the major questions looming for David Beckham and Inter Miami going forward.
Gary, really bad week for Miami. I mean, Atlanta, I think, had 34 points fewer, didn't they, than Miami finished with. But this is what happens in playoff football. Huge blow for the project and huge blow for David Beckham and everybody into Miami.
Yeah, I was really disappointed for them because when you see that sort of level of performance that they put in the league, but you're right, that's the nature of cup football, of playoff football, of that idea of that jeopardy that exists within a one-off match where anything can happen, and that's a sport. And you know, it's a different, completely skill set. You know, being consistent over a long period of time and then raising your game for a one-off amazing performance, which obviously is what's happened in this particular game, has shook me. Obviously, it will shake Miami as well, and I'm disappointed. Obviously, I'm gutted for Becks because obviously I know that was something that was really close to his heart this year. They've done brilliantly in the league during the season, and then this happens. But look, next year, sport and football always give you another chance.
Well, at least they've got the Club World Cup to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Penny for Gianni Infantino's thoughts. I'm sure he won't even be worried about it. But yes, that does definitely add to the controversy around their inclusion in the Club World Cup next year, for certain, now that they, of course, are definitely not going to be MLS champions. Hi, Will.
Oh,
hey.
Hi, Will.
Hi, Rebecca, Gary. How you doing? I'm sorry I'm late. I just found out I have an outdated version of Chrome, so I apologise. I was just sorting that out. I'm
That's
sorry.
all right.
No
it's
problem.
Absolutely fine. Absolutely. Look at that great T-shirt. Okay, we'll get on to that in a second. I know.
Will, I have to start, to be fair, because whilst we were waiting for you, I was just reading this. They send a little stat pack through on you, and it said that, obviously I wouldn't have known this, that you won the Best Kiss Award that you shared with Jennifer Aniston and Emma Roberts in 2014, and I was like, geez, you're 21 at 2014 and you're getting to kiss Jennifer Aniston. I wasn't doing that at 21. I was kissing Paul Scholes at 35.
Listen, I just still feel sorry for Jen. That's all I can think. And Emma, to be honest, I feel sorry for them both.
Well,
having to do that.
Well, my concern is that was 10 years ago. If you just had really bad kisses ever since, why have you not won another award?
Oh my gosh! Yeah, that's the pity. That's the pity award, if ever there is one. That is pity silverware, obviously.
Silverware is silverware. We are so happy to have you here on this episode of It's Called Soccer. Of course, Will Poulter. Everybody knows you from all of the incredible movies you've been in. We're the Millers, which we just talked about. The Revenant, Midsummer, The Bear that you're in as well. Everybody is loving and watching so many movies. You're part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well. A 2-time Emmy nominee. And a huge Arsenal fan, because you're wearing right now, for all those listening, not watching, an Atlanta Gooners t-shirt. So Will Poulter, welcome to It's Called Soccer. Why the t-shirt? Where are you? What's happening?
Thank you. That's very kind. Yeah. Biggest takeaway for me from that was that I'm an Arsenal fan, which I'm very proud of, and I bear no bones about. I'm really lucky. I get to travel to the States a lot with work, and keeping up with the Premier League, as you well know, means, early mornings. But it also requires me to kind of track down places where I can watch the game. And there's a pub in Atlanta that very sweetly gifted me with this, because I was that sort of strange British bloke sat on his own, a lot of times watching the games at strange hours in the morning. But just around the country, it's so nice to be able to connect with American fans, and the passion for the league and the game as a whole is so massive over here. And I've really been embraced kind of anywhere I've gone, regardless of whether the person next to me is in an Arsenal shirt or not, which is quite a nice thing.
Will, how much of your time are you in the UK, and how much of the time of your time are you in the US?
Yeah, do you know what, Gary? It sort of varies year on year. I would say, like, crudely speaking, I'm probably here for half the year. Just with the amount of stuff that shoots in the US. It's really nice. I mean, things shoot kind of all over. So, I've been able to watch Arsenal in, Richmond, Virginia. I was at a place like regularly there for a number of months. North Carolina, Atlanta, obviously, LA, Boston, Chicago. I've kind of sort of found Arsenal bars, or at least like soccer pubs, wherever I've been.
And Will, that makes you, I have to say this because we see it every week, it makes you the perfect face for the Premier League promotional video that plays on our show.
It's early here, but you're far from late.
It's brilliant seeing you on there, and it gives you a proper authenticity, doesn't it?
Thank you. I mean, that was my dream come true. I just I bit their hand off when they asked me to do that. I felt very, very lucky, and to have been able to kind of, develop that relationship with the Premier League and also Arsenal is so special. Like, boyhood me, I don't know, thinking that I would be doing that, it's just like bizarre, beyond anything I could have dreamt up. For sure.
How are you an Arsenal fan? Because is your dad not a Doncaster Rovers fan?
That's amazing research. My dad is a Donny Rovers fan.
I know two things you can kiss, and your dad supports Doncaster Rovers.
Well, I can guarantee the second one is true, but only the second, unfortunately. Yeah, my dad's a Donny Rovers fan. Grew up in Doncaster. It was a hard sell to me and my brother, I think, and. Listen, I keep an eye on Donny Rovers and love them, and they're like my kind of second team, I suppose. It was Arsenal from the day that my brother kind of got hold of me. It was the first game he ever went to. The first game I ever went to was Arsenal-Chelsea. He kind of made the point to me. He was like, listen, without any disrespect towards Dad, we probably won't be going up to Doncaster as much as, you can potentially go to Arsenal, which is, by comparison, just down the road. And I fell in love with the team at that time. I had a really kind of amazing childhood in respect of watching Arsenal. You didn't make things easy on me always, Gary, if I'm honest. But, aside from a few losses here and there, I mean, I really, couldn't have wished for sort of a dreamier start to life supporting a team. And so many great memories thanks to Arsenal.
Who were your sort of like hit? Was it like the Thierry Henry sort of teams? Was it that group?
Correct. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was, Gary. Yeah, and I think for me especially, it was the younger players that kind of joined the squad. As we kind of transitioned from Highbury to the Emirates. I remember feeling like I was only a few years younger than 𝘂𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗏 when he was on the pitch, and then, Jack Wilshere too, these kind of younger guys who just felt like, they could have been, I don't know, a couple of years above us in school, but they were just doing the most incredible things on the pitch. And Thierry was my absolute hero. For me, there's a few better players to ever do it. So,
Will, you talked about the dreamy start to being an Arsenal fan, that sort of first maybe 10 or so years. What about the last 10 or so years? How are you reflecting on that? Less dreamy?
It's been slightly different. There's been a few nightmare periods as well. I think you can't separate that necessarily from obviously the transition that was required post Wenger. It was for 23 years, and so much of the identity of the club was kind of informed by what he brought in his philosophy. And even in the last few years, it was a little bit tough to watch. I think that one of the things that was, I suppose, hardest to watch as an Arsenal fan was just knowing that defensively we weren't as resilient as we are, I think, now. We'd sometimes play brilliant football and dominate. It felt like there was 10 years where we dominate possession, play brilliant football, put together 50 pass moves, and then not score enough and also leak goals. It was exciting, but not all that fulfilling. I think the job that Arteta's done is unbelievable. It's been, certainly in the last few years, much more exciting and much more fulfilling.
Are you worried about them at the moment, Will? Do you think it's purely, the first 11 games of the season haven't gone well. Do you think it's down to the sendings off and the injuries rather than it being almost like a sort of a pattern of what Arsenal are going to be all season? Do you think they will get back into the title?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I think it's multifaceted. I really don't want to sort of subscribe to this idea that referees are against us and it's all about injuries and sending offs. I just don't believe that, and I think frankly we're too good to be using that as excuses as a team. I think that it wasn't the ideal start. It was a pretty tough start to the season just generally from a schedule perspective. There were some potentially controversial sending offs, and injuries didn't break our way, but we still haven't been good enough. The only thing that I think I take issue with is people having a pop at us for, maybe being boring when we've had to sort of emphasize a defensive approach, talk of the dark arts, etc. Because for 10 years, I heard people saying that, Arsenal soft and we needed to embrace the dark arts and we didn't have that gritty edge and we didn't know when to sort of sit in, be compact and emphasize, a defensive approach. And I think the other big miss that you can't talk about a team that are sincerely trying to win the league and simultaneously sincerely kind of criticize them if you don't acknowledge that their most creative player hasn't been on the pitch for the majority of those games. Martin Odegaard, there was 103 chances created last season, which put him third in the league. He just hasn't been on the pitch. So naturally, we haven't created as much as we ought to. I think there's still an argument for us needing a striker for sure, and the general lack of chances created across the forward line is a bit of a concern. But I think without Martin, it's been really, really hard to judge us kind of fairly as an outfit for the rest of the season. And the risk of just using this as an opportunity to get all my frustration off my chest, I think.
Yeah, we're here for you, Will. We're here for you.
Keep going, Will. Keep going.
Keep going? Okay, I will. I think that, that game against Liverpool, I really lament because I feel like we should have won it. But I think going into that game without Saliba, and I think that probably is, a red card at the end of the day and a suspension. But going into that game without Saliba, Ben White out of position, Thomas Partey at right back, we finished the game without Gabriel. At one point, it was 17-year-old 𝘂𝗱𝗲𝗿𝘀𝗁𝗂, and what a player, by the way. But then 𝘂𝗶𝗺𝗃𝗃, an out of position Ben White and Thomas Partey. The fact we didn't lose that game, I think, is amazing. The idea of Mo Salah running at that defence for more than 5 minutes is like crazy to me. So I feel like we did well to kind of hang on, and I'm just really hoping moving forward we can have a sort of generally more fit squad, and maybe a bit more luck kind of breaks our way.
Will, you should give up acting and be a pundit, by the way. You're absolutely...
I think this has got a touch of the therapy sessions about it, actually. This is a little bit therapy. I'm going to make this bit worse for you, because we work with a guy in our studio who's a huge Arsenal fan like you. And he at the moment is struggling mainly with the concept that you've waited for City to have a blip for ages, for years. Not only are they having a blip you're not capitalising on, Will, but cheeky old Liverpool are just coming on up, and now 5 points clear. And it's almost like, 2 years ago was a nightmare for you. Last year, a nightmare for you in terms of losing, not winning the league. But if you were to come third, and Liverpool, to let Liverpool in, that is
Absolutely
stressful, I feel like.
It really is, and I don't know. I mean, I'm certainly not, the best placed person on this call to make this kind of assumption, but I think I'm borrowing from something you would have said, Gary, on the Overlap podcast. You made a point that this season does feel a bit different in respect of how many points you might expect, teams to drop. I think it does, for whatever reason. I don't know whether that's just like sheer number of games or kind of how competitive things are this year. But listen, City losing 4 games in a row, that shocks me as much as it delights me. But I think that we are going to see teams drop points over the course of the season, and I don't think it's going to be like the seasons of old where there are 2 teams, putting up crazy numbers and everyone else kind of falling by the wayside. It does upset me that we haven't capitalised. I mean, that's another thing, historically, if I'm honest, there are times where you want Arsenal to go for the jugular when someone else, has dropped points, and we haven't. And I think great teams who win back-to-back championships do that, and they handle the pressure of that. They handle the pressure of knowing that, okay, because someone won at 3:00 on a Saturday, come Sunday, we need to win our game to go above them. And I just hope things can pick up later in the course of the season. And it is so early too, I think there's also danger to peaking too early, and Liverpool look fantastic. I think Slot looks really, really impressive as well, but in the way of injuries, schedule, things have broken a little bit more favorably for them. I think maintaining what they are doing over the course of the season is going to be tough. 7 points is worrying as a gap, but it's not insurmountable. And they're about to come up against a pretty tough run of fixtures, I think.
I feel like you've talked yourself all the way round and you're back to positivity again. You're like, Liverpool are coming up.
And I'm back to winning the league. Back to winning the league. Yeah, exactly.
Will, you did the kit launch, didn't you? The Arsenal, was it the 3rd kit? How did that all happen?
That was really where I should have retired, actually. I got very lucky that the Premier League ad came afterwards, but I would have happily retired after that. That came about because... So my friend 𝘂𝗱𝗄𝗍 owns the brand. He's the creator of 𝘂𝗱𝗄𝗍𝗍𝗍, and Arsenal did this great collaboration between Adidas, 𝘂𝗱𝗄𝗍𝗍𝗍, and the club for this kit launch. And they asked me to do it, and there was a concept with a chef kind of cooking in a breakfast cafe, and Arsenal fans coming in, and various kind of Arsenal legends and whatnot. And I think because my involvement in the Bear and me knowing 𝘂𝗱𝗄𝗍 and being a big Arsenal fan and not really shutting up about it, they let me in, and super grateful and just so fun for me. And I'm on an Arsenal WhatsApp group chat with a bunch of friends, and I didn't tell them until, I don't think I told them until day of, or someone posted the link, and because it was so... it was such a like dream come true, and it was so, it's the closest I'm ever getting to playing for Arsenal, wearing the shirt and promoting it. So I didn't even want to sort of speak it out loud until it was actually out there, and I didn't know how to talk about it without being really like boastful. But it was very special for me.
Will, you had some fantastic teammates, not in football terms, but in acting terms. I'm just looking here at sort of The Revenant. You with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy. I'm obsessed with Tom Hardy. Just tell us what it's like to work with those two.
Gary, you know what? That for me, I guess in acting terms, it felt like I was on the pitch with, kind of legends of the game sort of thing. And, as a young actor, I was 20 at the time, maybe 21, working with them. It was pretty kind of pinch yourself. I will say that the nice thing that really kind of helped me out is they're both so good as performers that the sort of, I don't know, the starriness around them or the degree to which I might be kind of starstruck was sort of eroded at by just how good they were and how much they kind of, dissolved into their characters. And so that made my job a little easier. That I had no issue making an idiot of myself. I seem to find that very easy. And but they just by being as good as they were and professional as they were, meant that, I could just kind of focus on the job in hand. And it was a really tough 6 months, but I felt like by training with the first team, if you like, I kind of got better, I guess, or I hope at least. Or there wasn't really an opportunity not to, kind of be performing at a certain level. So yeah, really a dream come true in so many respects.
Will, when you are working in the States and you're working in LA probably a lot of the time, do you come across Premier League fans in the industry?
Yeah, I do, and it's so nice when I'm on set and suddenly I'll see someone with a hat or even a tattoo, on occasion, it's nice as well. I mean, it gives us like something to talk about on set besides film and television, and sometimes I'm not doing my job. Sometimes I'm not on my mark and not ready to go because I'm chatting about, a refereeing decision with one of the camera people, so I do come across it, and it's great to see, how much the Premier League has been embraced here. And that Arsenal WhatsApp chat, when I send videos through of people like singing, in the pubs and bars, my friends can't believe just what an amazing atmosphere there is over here.
Will, just one more question before we get to a couple of special fan questions. You were born in Hammersmith, West London. Yep. I was born in Hammersmith, West London. Many years before you. But I was born and raised in Ealing, so we're similar kind of areas of the world. Yeah, absolutely.
Rebecca, though, don't rule yourself out, because with Jennifer Aniston, you're in his age range. He's been mean to me all morning. I turned 44 yesterday. He was like, oh, that was the age that Jennifer Aniston was when she kissed Will. I'm like, okay, stop. Everybody stop. Okay. My question was, it's an easy tagline from Hammersmith to Hollywood, of course. And then you're so young still, and you're right in the middle of it, and you're right in the middle of your success, and long may it continue. But do you have moments where you're just like pinching yourself and being like, this is quite the dream right now?
All the time. Both the commercials you just mentioned, I'm so regularly, I really try not to lose sight of the fact that I have no qualifications. I'm a college dropout, as they would say over here, and I get to do what I love for a living. So I'm super grateful. And, it's another reason I feel like I can't really afford, nor do I feel like it would be right to, not just like work my hardest and try and keep it up, because it's, nothing's promised. And I think, look at it almost similarly to how a sports person would. It's like an injury tomorrow could change everything. And I feel kind of, similarly, you never know kind of like what's around the corner, and, there's no guarantee of work. So you do, to an extent, luck notwithstanding, and I've definitely had my fair share, but you kind of get out what you put in.
This episode of It's Called Soccer is brought to you by the Unfiltered Soccer podcast. Landon Donovan and my old mate Tim Howard are true legends of US soccer. Between Landon's 6 MLS Cups with the Galaxy and Earthquakes and Tim's 13 years in the Premier League with both Everton and Manchester United, they have done it all on the field. And now, they're bringing their experience, expertise, and unfiltered insights straight to fans in a way they never could as players. In Unfiltered Soccer with Landon Donovan and Tim Howard, these Hall of Famers dive right into every area of the game. They're covering it all, from MLS rivalries to Premier League battles and the biggest matches on the road to the 2026 World Cup right here in North America. And they do not hold back. I know Tim, that's definitely true. It's real, straight talking from two of the most decorated players in US soccer history. It is all kicking off. Follow Unfiltered Soccer on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube with new episodes every Tuesday morning. Will, before we go, just a handful of questions for you. Some quickfire ones sent in from the It's Called Soccer community. Our first one, though, comes from an Arsenal goal-scoring legend, the man that is Ian Wright.
No way. Oh, my God.
Hey, Will, how you doing? It's Righty. I just wanted to ask you something, because you know about superheroes. You're a superhero anyway. I want to ask you a question about Nev and Kara and being Batman and Robin. Out of them two, who's Batman, who's Robin?
Good. So Righty's properly stitched me up. That's great. That is hilarious. I mean, how do I even answer? It's so funny because obviously, Gary, with yourself and Jamie, you know, I grew up watching you, and anytime you played Arsenal, I was against you. And then, of course, when you were playing for England, I was for you. So, you know, you're certainly not villains in my eyes. And then I suppose because you spent the majority of the season wearing, you know, the enemy's kit, I couldn't say heroes. You're both more interesting than that. You're kind of anti-heroes.
Good answer, by the way.
Those characters that like exist in the grey area.
He's been nice. He's been nice, Rebecca.
Need the answer to the question, Will. Need the answer to the question.
This is a politician's answer point. I don't think Batman and Robin is quite right, though.
Oh no,
I don't think that's...
Will, Kara's quite good at Robin.
He's not here, so I guess I don't have to deal with it. So I guess you're Batman, Gary. And then I guess Kara's Robin, and if I run into him, I run into him.
Well, you're not going to run into him anytime soon, but he has got a question for you.
Hi, Will. Jamie Carragher here. I just want to throw a little question at you. So you've mixed with the elites, shall we say, in Hollywood. So from your experience, who would you pick as your perfect five-a-side team from people you've bumped into or worked with in Hollywood?
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a great one. Five-a-side. That's really good. Gosh, I'm going to get some stick if I don't mention some people who fancy themselves on the football pitch, soccer pitch. I'd have to first go with my friend 𝘂𝗱𝗄𝗏, who's in Ted Lasso, plays Isaac. He's a very good footballer. And funnily enough, I actually was the person, I think, who filmed him doing 𝘂𝗱𝗄𝗏𝗏𝗍. He had to send in a tape on top of his acting, you know, or whatever scene he was required to perform. He had to show, you know, signs of, and to anyone with a set of ears, he'll tell you he had trials for West Ham. So I knew that Collar was going to be all right. I'm wondering, I feel like I should put Jason Sudeikis in there too, because I'm just assuming that he can play, but I've actually not seen evidence of that. Jason Sudeikis.
I mean, you're playing, aren't you? You're in.
Can I pick myself?
You're definitely picking yourself. Okay. You've only got the name two more.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll pick myself. I'm incredibly slow these days, so I'll just be doing minimal work. But
you need a goalkeeper.
Yeah, I need a goalkeeper. Do you know what? I will throw in my friend Finn Bennett. Finn, who was in the latest season of True Detective, and I just shot a film called Warfare with Finn. Finn's class.
Doesn't have to be all men, by the way. I mean, Jennifer could make the cut.
I was going to put 𝘂𝗱𝗏𝗍𝗏𝗏 in, who's also an Arsenal fan, and 𝘂𝗱 can play.
Okay.
So that would be my five.
All right, I love it. Okay, brilliant. All right, a couple of questions from some Arsenal fans for you. Just quick fire ones. We won't keep you much longer. Elliot Smith.
Hey, Will. My name's Elliot Smith. I'm the host of the Arsenal Vision podcast. I'm curious to know, of all the characters you've played, which one would most likely be an Arsenal supporter?
It would would be 𝘂𝗱𝗵𝗻𝗃𝗃 from the Bear, because I actually made him an Arsenal fan. When I got to design my tattoos, I had about 3 different Arsenal tattoos. I had a cannon on my arm. I had AFC somewhere, and one other. But yeah, 𝘂𝗱𝗵𝗃𝗃 would have been an Arsenal fan. And funnily enough, for that job, I did all my training in North London and in Islington. So I worked in restaurants in that area that are quite close to the stadium. So my friend Chef Conor Gadd, who runs True Lowe, which is not far from the stadium, I worked at his place, and he's a big Arsenal fan.
Proper method preparation. I love it. Okay, and Frimpong, who works full time with Arsenal.
What's going on, Will? Frimmy here. I hope you are good, but I have a quick question. In The Bear, your character has many of his favourite tattoos, including an Arsenal one, yeah? So you got to be honest with me. Would you ever consider getting the Arsenal ink for real? Let me know.
I actually do. I don't know if I can show it.
Yes, you can.
It's one of those
definitely
things.
Show it.
I might be able to show. I mean, like, not because it's inappropriate, by the way, but just because it's just an awkward placement. But I don't know if you can see.
Oh, we've got is it a calf?
I stand on.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
It's a calf.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
There we go.
Got it.
There you go.
That's impressive.
So, yeah, so I have. I've never shown that in public. So there you go. That's an exclusive.
Yo, Will, I have a question for you. Okay, I know you're an Arsenal fan, so am I. As you can see, this legendary shirt. If you can play any Arsenal legend or anyone in general that's played for Arsenal in a movie, who would it be and why?
That's a good question. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'd love to. Jack Wilshere. I'm just trying to think about something. I'm a little bit lankier than Jack, and I've got about 0.1% of the skill, so it wouldn't be an ideal casting match. But oh my gosh, Jack was just one of my favorite players. And I think about like performances that he put in against like some of the best, like one of the best Barcelona sides ever. Yeah. You know, in Champions Leagues at the age of 18, I think he was, or 19, and dominating midfield. It's like, yeah, and such a shame. I think everyone, you know, really kind of laments how much injuries kind of plagued him and held him back. But what a guy.
Okay, Morgan from Los Angeles.
Hey, Will, it's Morgan from Arsenal Los Angeles. If you could take any Arsenal player, past or present, to a movie premiere, who would you take and what movie would you see?
It's 𝘂𝗱𝗵𝗃𝗃, I think for me. I only say that because I've met Righty already, and he's so lovely. And I've had the opportunity to meet him, but never met Cesc. And he just kind of, when I think about like the most kind of meaningful years watching Arsenal, Cesc, the person who comes to mind. One of my favourite players to watch playing the game, and I think really intrigued by what he's up to as a manager now as well. You know, so probably have a good conversation afterwards, hopefully. Anyway.
Brilliant. Will, what are you working on right now? Because you're obviously in the States.
Yeah, I'm working on a project called I Love Boosters at the moment, which is Boots Riley's second feature, and I feel very lucky to be doing that. So I'm going between LA and Atlanta, Warfare, and a film called Death of the Unicorn come out next year.
Wow. Not busy.
Oh, you're busy?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Trying. When I'm not watching Arsenal.
Yeah, international.
But thank you so much.
Will, thank you so much.
I'm a real fan of the podcast, so thank you. It means a lot. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us, Will.
Thank you.
Cheers.
That's about it, Gary, I think. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to this week's episode of It's Called Soccer. Subscribe, of course, where you do your watching and where you do your listening. Gary, have a great international break. I will see you next week.
Thank you. And you, Rebecca.